All right, we have reached the final session of the day, and this one is a doozy. We have seen the demos and the viral videos, but actually moving from research to the real world is its own complex journey. The CEO of Boston Dynamics, Rob Plater, and CEO of Sarcos, Kiva Allgood, are here to talk with TechCrunch's Hayek Camps about the process of bringing the robotics to the market, from pilot testing to scaling for manufacturing. But first, let's take a look at a new video from Boston Dynamics Spot Robot at work.
Hello there, I am Haya and I'm one of the writers here at TechCrunch, and I'm joined today for a really interesting panel session with Kiva from Sarcos Technology and Robert from Boston Dynamics. So glad to have you both on this panel to talk about how we're going to put robots to work out in the real world. I have loved what both of your companies have been doing. And I think it would be really interesting to start with a quick introduction to yourselves and the kind of robots and robotics you're working on. Kiva, would you like to go first?
Of course, thank you. Well, I'm excited to be here. I always love to talk about my favorite second human beings, which are robots. So again, Kiva Allgood, and I have the fortune of leading Sarcos Technology, and we are a robotics company. We have 3 flagship products. We have an exoskeleton that really partners with the human to allow it to do things it can't do normally. So we have what we call the XT, which is a teleoperated, really highly dexterous product that sits really on anything. So think about any task at height that's super dangerous. So we have a robot that can go up there and do that task while the operator sits, inside or in comfort. And then we have a 6-arm, which is the same thing. And it really allows you to do dexterous operations and takes humans out of harm's way. So we like to say we do the dirty job.
I love that. The idea that we are now in a world where exoskeletons exist makes me so happy. So I look forward to delving into that a little bit in just a moment.
Well, come to Salt Lake City. We'd love to have you.
I'll be right there. I'll be running around with a
Yep.
Suit on. Robert, Boston Dynamics, you've been doing all sorts of amazing stuff. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Robert Plater. I'm the CEO of Boston Dynamics. I've been with the company really since its founding. We have 3 robots that we're building and selling right now. We're selling 2 out of 3. Spot is a mobile quadruped robot that is being used for industrial inspections. It's really the first legged walking robot that's become a product for industrial uses. Stretch is a mobile case picking robot that we're building specifically for the logistics industry. The first use case will be unloading trucks and containers full of boxes. The third is a research platform that we call Atlas. It's a humanoid robot. And we're using that to continue to push the boundaries of mobile manipulation, which like Kiva, we think that manipulation is particularly important in forward-going use cases.
Yeah, that's amazing. So Boston Dynamics in particular has been showing off these robots for a while. And I feel like you both are like kind of shifting gears a little bit into actually shipping to customers and getting these out into the real world. And I'm really excited about how that has been for you guys. Like what has that been like to go from kind of a fun prototype type company to like, oh, we got to ship these things and actually get them into customers' hands. What has been the biggest shift there?
It's a huge shift. One of the biggest ones is we've gone from about a 100-person company, which was the R&D company, proving the technology. We're currently 500 people because we've built out all this additional functionality, services, supply chain, manufacturing, enlarging our finance teams, really all of the above, because there's so much more to actually building and delivering a product than getting the first prototype to work.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'll double click on that. Clearly there's the expanding your repertoire as it is from just testing, but it's also a different mindset. It's also shifting the engineers, because R&D engineers who love just to prove out and continue to iterate don't love putting their pencils down. So as you expand the organization to be able to support going to market with sales and finance, as Rob mentioned, you also have to make sure that you've got the right mindset in the engineering side of the house. And that's a big transition. So it's really hard if you've spent 20 years building a robot, it's your baby, and you want to keep, making it better, not necessarily, saying it's as good as it's going to get. So I'd say that's probably one of the biggest mind shifts we've had to deal with.
And one of the challenges there, we're really trying hard to both build and deliver products and maintain that R&D edge to develop the next generation of things. And I think as Kiva is alluding to there, that can be tough to do inside the same organization because there really is a different kind of mindset. And so that's why we have Atlas here. That's why we still have research projects that we're doing while we're also trying to deliver products so that we can really kind of keep both kinds of employees interested and engaged.
Yep.
Yeah. And I imagine also when you're kind of in the earlier stages of building new products, building new prototypes, when you're out there showing it off, there will be an engineer with the robot. And presumably as it's getting shipped to customers, that's actually shifting a little bit as well. It gets shifted more to the customer to run it and stuff. And does that, I have kind of a curiosity around whether that shifts how your customer service operates as well, because obviously now the customers are running the robots themselves.
Oh, 100%. If Rob touched on just maintenance and servicing. So clearly you can't send an engineer out there with every product. So you have to have a diagnostic set. You have to have diagnostic tools. So that needs to be part of the mindset of the engineer too, who's releasing the product. Where you're in R&D phase, the folks love going down there and fixing it and saying, I did it. They don't document it. They don't say, here's the 5 diagnostic things that I need to do. But when you actually put a product in market, you've got to make sure that you're enabling that customer to be as self-supportive as they possibly can be. Even though robots are, they're complex things, you can do a diagnostic, you can have a test kit, you can do all these things, but those things come later in the product development cycle. And sometimes they're an afterthought, especially for an engineer. And then they think, oh, if I had done it this way, it would be easier to do that. So we're really trying to do design for manufacturing, or DFX, and that includes design for servicing, which is it's a slightly different thing than just demonstrating that a technology can work.
And what we're finding is that it also is forcing us, because the customer needs to be successful with the product, more of the solution needs to be built into the product, making it easier for the customer to access. Yeah. So when you have engineers, you can make a robot do almost anything. But if you're going to have the customers do it, you kind of got to have it all working together in a way that makes it really easy. The out-of-the-box experience just works. And that means you need to understand the actual application and build the connecting infrastructure to make the robot actually deliver value.
Yeah. 100%. You also mentioned the scary S word earlier, supply chain. Obviously, we've had a couple of years of it not being a lot of fun to be in hardware. Have you guys been bitten by this at all?
Oh, for sure. We're able to build and deliver what we need to, but we're definitely paying premiums, and everybody's having to work double time to just find the material.
Yeah, we're not immune, and especially if you think about even something like anodizing. So the supply chain has been impacted across all the way down into the industrial. So you're thinking about getting tools. Something that used to take 4 weeks is taking 40. And so you've just got to really think through that and make sure that you're doing a really good job of proper planning and, looking for alternatives. But it's definitely had a huge impact.
Yeah. Well, and the tooling thing in particular, if you're talking about scaling up and doing design for manufacture work, it's the tooling always took time, and now it seems like it's spiked significantly. Has that slowed you guys down in terms of actually getting the robots out to market?
Well, I think there's a little difference, of course. The robot market is nascent, and we're all trying to move fast and get material out there products out there to understand product market fit. Whereas in the automotive industry, they can spend 5 years designing and refining and really making something reliable. I think we're finding, well, we want to build it and get it out there and get feedback from the market quickly. Mm-hmm. And so we're still in kind of a rapid development and iteration phase in order to facilitate that. So it hasn't really slowed us down, but we're also not delivering at such a large scale yet where we have purpose-built manufacturing facilities just yet.
Yeah, I think we are in that tipping point. I think COVID has been an accelerant, obviously, for the mobile workforce. Here we are. We would have been having this conversation face to face and with some coffee. And that accelerant has also found its place in the industrial environment as well. If you just think about the fact that you've got resource constraints across the board, a lot of the issues we're having on the supply chain side are the fact that they can't get enough people to do the jobs. Now that has opened up the door. So there's an aperture and there's a pull. But to Rob's point, getting people to really integrate a robot into where a human used to stand and do that work takes time. But I'd say there's a stronger pull for and willingness to be like, yeah, I think a robot could do this job just as effectively. And in our case, we focus very heavily on jobs that are, put people at risk, and so that are at height and such. So getting the products in customers' hands is the priority, even if it's not perfect at this point, so that we can get that feedback and then we can continually iterate so that it becomes a more profitable product for our partners as well.
Yeah. Could you bring that to life a little bit for me? Like what kind of jobs are like put people in harm's ways, and how can your robots help avoid that?
Yeah. So think about anything at height. So, tree trimming. So you have to clear around those electrical lines, right? One of the number one causes for fires. Yeah, that's a human in a bucket truck with 4 other humans watching it up at height with a saw in its hand, cutting around a live power line. Very dangerous. Construction at height, also super dangerous. Anything with scaling, anything that has repetitive motion too, that has a strong impact on shoulders and arms. That's where if you have a robot doing those tasks and a human who's now a robot operator, right? They've also elevated and learned a new skill. So they're no longer just that technician. They're actually, the fleet operator of robots. So they can do it also in harm's way. Another key use case for us is around aviation. So if you think about the fact, I've sat on an airplane when there's a lightning storm out. That's just because you can't place a human on the tarmac during a lightning storm, but you can place a robot. So there's a lot of use cases where it's too dangerous for a human to go, but a robot can.
Yeah. And I imagine, Rob, for your products, especially with the Spot for inspection type stuff, I imagine that used to be humans crawling around doing inspections, and that's now being replaced by robots, right?
It's both. I think, as Kiva suggested, some of the best applications are one where there's a safety issue. So, for example, measuring radiation inside a nuclear power plant is a common application. Some utility companies and power companies are using Spot, for example. There's a dangerous event when you need to disconnect, high voltage, high power equipment. It can generate an arc flash, and it kills hundreds of people a year. And Ontario Power Generation just used Spot and proved that they can do that power disconnect with our robot. We've also got police and safety customers who are using Spot to explore chemical, biological, CBRN, dangerous environments. Maybe there's fentanyl. So I just saw a nice report from a customer where they're using Spot to explore, a drug den and find out if there's drugs inside the building. So there's lots of cases, and anytime there's a safety issue, that really drives the value from the customer's point of view.
Yeah,
100%.
Are you guys finding that you're surprised by the kind of applications that your customers want to use the robots for?
I love discovery sessions. So, that's really, I think, the critical point for both companies is getting the product in customers' hands. That's the aha moment. So the lightning example I gave you was the aha moment when we had the ops team from one of the larger airlines in. You see it in their eyes, like, oh, whoa, like, and they start doing the math and they start doing the numbers. It's cool technology, but for a lot of our partners, if it doesn't help them make money, save money, or come up with a new process that keeps people out of harm's way, there's not a ton of value. And so they have to really be able to understand, how is this product really going to enhance my service, my product? And they're very, very mindful of that. But there's a lot of, you literally can see it in their eyes when they figure it out. And that happens when you get on site and they start to use the product and they start to understand the impact that it can have.
A lot of the applications we're working on are what we expected. For example, our stretch robot's going to unload, boxes out of the back of a container. And, that's going to be a home run product for sure. Every time we show it to customers, they're like, okay, when can I get it? They understand the need. And so that's when you've got a great product, when you understand the value, the customer sees it, you just got to get it built and reliable. But some of them have been surprising, like this power disconnect from Ontario Power Generation. It's not something we had thought about, but we built Spot as a platform that can be adapted to a bunch of different applications, and that was their creativity to go solve a problem that they had.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I wonder also if of course, once you have one of those customers, you can actually start marketing around that. Like, hey, this is a product category that is, where these types of robots can perform in ways that humans can't or shouldn't. And you have a chance to actually use that as a marketing channel or as a case study.
Yeah, so we're working with these customers to do a little marketing. First, we like to prove value, make sure that they feel like they're getting value out of it, that the robot's actually doing the job, and then doing a little bit of joint marketing works very effectively.
Yeah, 100%. Because you also have to demonstrate the customer value. I mean, to Rob's point, and if that has to be there. So we work in different spaces. We're very focused on unstructured environments in the sense that every single time you show up, it looks a little bit different. So, the boxes never are conformed, they're unconformed, they look different. You're on the side of a ship, you're in a construction site. At least you hope every day you show up at the construction site, it looks a little different. Otherwise, you're not progressing. So in that instance, it's really trying to, figure out the use cases where you need that level of dexterity. And also, we're very focused on trying to bring autonomy into play as well.
Yeah. Rob, were you about to say something?
No, I had my bit on customer creativity, I think.
Yeah. No, I love that, and kind of seeing that evolve going forward. Since you're now starting to ship more and kind of getting more into market, Rob, you mentioned staffing up from 100 to 500. Can you say a little bit more about like the business units that have had to evolve to turn this into more of a going concern?
Yeah, so certainly it started with service. We were building spots, in the lab, but we needed to service them, and so that was a whole new function. Marketing. We never really did a whole lot of outbound marketing. We posted some videos on YouTube, but now we're trying to systematically go and target the right customers. So that function has grown considerably. Of course, we actually stood up our own manufacturing facility here in Waltham. That's operational now. We're going to be able to produce thousands of robots per year in this facility. That's a whole new skill set. And so that's been a relatively recent evolution as well. So, and as Kiva said, there's a lot more work around reliability and trying to find those rare but important failures. And so, people who are still excited by the engineering problem solving, where you're trying to eliminate a once in 1,000 hour kind of operation failure, is a little bit different than getting the first version to work.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, has there been a evolution in your jobs as well as CEOs of these companies to kind of spool up those types of operations? I can imagine that's actually a pretty big shift for you personally.
Yeah, it was a big shift for me for sure. The leadership here was really Mark Rabert and me and a couple of technical leaders, and that's just changed again entirely. I've hired a whole new leadership team. So at least half of the leadership team are new skill sets coming in, legal, financial, people ops, to handle the scale. So how you run a 500 person company and how you run a 100 person, I knew everybody when we were a 100 person company, and I don't know them all now anymore. So, everything, it's shifting a lot. Yeah,
you definitely have that, I'd say, transformation of the leadership team. So that also comes with its own challenges. People taking on slightly different roles where they used to wear 5 or 6 different hats. Now you're narrowing that down, and that also creates an opportunity as a leader, right? You have to really lead with empathy. You have to understand that you're changing their frame of reference and that they're still excited to go on this journey with you. So you definitely have to, I'd say, take a different approach than when you're just trying to drive to prove. We also had to change the leadership team. Now supply chain and manufacturing, are critical parts of the leadership team and, report directly to me. So I'd say as you mature a product, the questions you ask, how you hold the team accountable, what are the key results you're looking for, those expand. And then you have to also, as a leader, be a lot more articulate with regard to what the priorities are. Because you used to have one priority, which was prove that this will work. Now your next priority is, getting people to buy it, that it's reliable, that you have, more engineers coming in and people are excited to work at your company. That's a very different mindset. So you do have to, you personally, at least for me, you have to be mindful of that, and then also have empathy for the people who've been on the journey with you the whole time. Some of them can go through that transition and some of them can't. So you have to keep a pulse and really just understand who can take that next step. Because there's some folks who just love doing R&D and that's all they ever want to do, and you want to embrace that. But you also have to understand then their role is going to change a lot, and be empathetic towards that.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like a really fun evolution of your job as well. Then, I mean, it feels like there's a like the job completely changes when you start setting up manufacturing facilities and like doing a lot more customer work.
For sure.
My job has changed just entirely, and I used to be, very excited about the R&D and seeing a robot do something new for the first time. I'm finding myself now to be really excited about, getting those mean time between failure hours up, because I know that's the important thing, and I know it's a hard job. But frankly, my job has changed every year. I've been at this company for almost 30 years, and it's just always changed. It's been an incredible ride, and so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm newer to Sarcos, so actually, I've been around Sarcos for 6 years. I was part of GE Ventures when they did the initial investment, but I've only been with Sarcos since December. So we've got a lot of the co-founders still part of the leadership team. So my role, I've been an operator. I'm a formed master black belt, Six Sigma software designer. So I love technology, and for me, this is the best job in the world. We've got manufacturing right behind me. I walk the floor every day. I get to see, robots doing stuff with plasma cutters. Didn't even know what a plasma cutter was. So it's a journey for me to be able to, and it's so exciting to kind of see the day in the life of a robot in an industrial environment. Every single day is different. Every challenge is different. And sometimes the technology has to change. And that piece of it is super exciting. And for me, it's bringing that to life. Literally, you're figuring out how do you get these things into customers' hands to create value for them. But the smile on the face of the operator too is always fun. It's always it's a joy.
Yeah, I love that. We only have a couple of minutes left here, and I was wondering if you could kind of think back and if you could give past you a piece of advice about starting to scale up these companies. Is there anything you wish you had known a little while ago?
I always knew there was going to be growing pains in going from 100 to 500. I've started to understand more about what form that can take now. And I think, more communication, making, when you change things, because the company is scaling, you need to explain the purpose of those changes, because the people who've been here for 10 or 20 years, they're comfortable. They like the way things are. And I think you need to explain why you need to change, and that you're not going to lose all the good stuff just because you're changing. I probably a little bit more proactivity on my part in doing that would have smoothed some things out.
Great advice.
Yeah, I mean, always, we just finished an acquisition, brought two great companies together. We've got 39 years in heritage. They had 20 years in heritage, all in robotics. So very deep, being first of their kind in a lot of things. And you do have to make sure that you are mindful of, you're changing the way someone has done their job for 39 years or 20 years, and their focus is changing. And then to Rob's point, really that layer of clarity, why does service matter? They need to understand that. Like what mean time to failure, why does that have an impact on the customer? They're always I always say, put the customer at the center of the journey in the conversation, and usually there's a win there.
I love that. Kiva, Rob, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. And I really appreciate you both.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.